Good morning or good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our FT Live Fireside Chat, a new era in international trade, selecting a global hub for industry, logistics, and fulfillment. My name is Jonathan Wheatlley, and I'm the Emerging Markets Correspondent at the Financial Times. This is the first event in an FT Live series on the new era in international trade, looking at how international trade is changing and looking at the role of clusters in addressing world logistics and industrial challenges. It's being held in partnership with Tanger Med, and we would like to thank them for being our partners in the series. I'm joined today by Jaafar Mrhardy, who is General Manager at Tanger Med, which for anyone not yet familiar with it is a logistics hub located on the Straits of Gibraltar. As an industrial platform covering more than 2,000 hectares, it's home to more than 1,000 companies in light industry, assembling, manufacturing, mostly in the automotive sector, but also in aeronautics and other sectors. And as a logistics hub, it has a port complex made up of 3 ports covering more than 1,000 hectares, connected to 180 ports in 70 countries, with an annual handling capacity for 9 million containers, 7 million passengers, 700,000 trucks, and 1 million other vehicles. We're hoping to have a lively discussion this afternoon, and we'd like to thank you, the audience, for being here. And we encourage you to take part as actively as you can. You can ask questions at any time using the Bizzabo agenda to the right of your screens, and we'll answer as many of those as we can during the course of the session. If you'd like to change the format of your video screen, you can do that by toggling between the settings that you can see in the top right-hand corner. And finally, before we start, I'd like to encourage you to share your impressions on social media using the hashtag FT Digital Dialogues and tagging us at FT Live. So, Jaafar, thank you so much for being here and for supporting us in this series. This really is a time of change for global trade. Even before the coronavirus pandemic hit, things were changing. So perhaps, Jaafar, you could start by giving us your views on how the recovery from the pandemic will play out, with some parts of the world picking up more quickly than we had expected until quite recently, but others lagging behind, recovering more slowly. How complex is the coming year going to be for those in the engine rooms of global trade?
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for this introduction, and thank you also to the Financial Times for giving us the opportunity as Tanger Med to spread the word about our activity and contribute on the current analysis about what is happening and this industrial activities, logistics, and so on. First, yes, I would like to inform you that. To share with you the idea that we had known last year, a very big crisis that everyone is aware of. And this kind of crisis, as you know, in history had also been all the time opportunities for some other operators, for some other countries, depending on the situation. So you're right when you say that the world did not face the coronavirus and the pandemic and had the same consequences. You may know that we hear everywhere that Africa, for example, has been less concerned in terms of death, in terms of cases, in terms also of some kind of economical impact, but still there is globally a decrease in the activity, a global decrease in the industry, in the consumption, in the consumption of people all around the world. And some businesses had suffered from a very important decrease in their activity. It's not the case for the trade and for the logistics, which is quite surprising, which was not maybe initially expected, because we will have the time to speak about it later. But in the case of Tanger Med, for example, we are industrial and logistic complex. We had a growth last year. It's some percentage. It's very small growth compared to previous years, but still it means also that there is an opportunity for some operators and some businesses to take the lead during this period. And we think that the small economies, small countries, small companies also have the capacity to be more flexible, more agile in terms of of way to respond to the crisis.
And I mean, do you mind talking us through that a little bit more? Because, as I said in the introduction, your industrial base is very largely in automotive, and it's obviously been a bad year for the automotive industry worldwide. What allowed your guys to keep going?
So in terms of industry in Tanger Med area business platform, we of course noticed a small decrease of activity in the existing areas, mature areas, like for example Tanger Free Zone, which is a 15 years old already industrial zone, where some operators had to shut down their activity because their their clients in Europe or in Asia or somewhere else were stopping the activity. But in the global platform, in Tanger Med platform itself, if we take all the 6 industrial activity zones, we also faced a very interesting growth between 5 to 10% in terms also of industrial production, because as you know, during some 3 to 6 months, we had a very important shutdown of industry in Europe. But during this period, we still had some activity with the American continent, USA mainly, and Canada, but also we had a takeoff or starting again a new dynamic in the China, for example, from the months of June or July, we had restart of activity in some countries, and the type of clients we have, of investors and of industries we have, finally managed to balance between the different destination of exports in order to keep the level of production high enough to maintain somehow the level of activity they had the previous year, even to notice some growth when they were able to take some share of market shares from some areas. Maybe I can introduce at this stage already an example, which is very, very illustrative. We had, I know we had many attendants today, and some part of them are from the USA and the UK. I'm going to speak about an American company, which is Lear Corporation, very important tier 1 company in the automotive industry, having hundreds of plants worldwide, more than $20 billion of turnover, if I remember well, and say it well. This company started the project with us during the 2019 in order to put in place a plant that was supposed to start the activity in March 2020, quite right on the pandemic. So I think we and Lear were fearing to be in somehow not able to start the activity during 2020, the March 2020. But instead of that, this activity not only started in March 2020, of course, with the small rhythm in the beginning, and then they developed their workforce. In April 2021, they have 3,000 people working on the plant, and this plant is having 100% of its capacity used. So during the pandemic, Lear Corporation in Tanger Med was able not only to continue to operate, but also to grow its business, because they had the opportunity to take the orders from countries or from markets where operators were not, for example, able to work due to more radical constraints. Just between to give you the information about the Moroccan situation about the pandemic, we noticed less than 10,000 deaths, which is not a small number. It's very huge. It's dramatical, of course, situation, but it's far away from other countries, and the percentage of death, and the percentage of people that has been concerned by the coronavirus is very low compared to other countries. It's like, for example, if you compare to Europe, it's from 1 to 10 if we keep the same ratios. So we were able to do things that was impossible to do in France, in Germany, in Spain. And it's also the case today. Those days we have main European countries that are stopping somehow for example, the nightlife, the restaurants, some activities, economical activities, which is not the case 100% in Morocco. In Morocco, we have constraints, we have new regulations in the working areas. We had to be innovative to, for example, separate the workers, create teams that don't meet with each other to lower the risk to spread the coronavirus, but Lear did not have to shut down the plants. And during all the pandemic, this is very important, no zero day of non-working in all Tanger Med business area. I don't speak about the ports. The ports, in fact, was 24 on 20 open and was working as it has to do. We've done an agreement, by the way, with big ports worldwide, Singapore, Hamburg, to maintain from the beginning of the logistic, to maintain the logistical flows, the worldwide logistical flows, so that we can serve the domestic markets everywhere, and there is no lack of goods or lack of agricultural products or whatever for population. But the port was 24/7, as it is all the time, like if nothing has changed, of course, with the regulation restrictions and so on. And for the industrial zones, we managed to, at the most dramatic time, to not lower the production and the occupation of less than 30%. We were between 30 and 50% of people working instead of, and the other workers were either working from their homes, or when in the plants it's not possible, but from all the administration of the plants were working from their homes. And we changed the shift. For example, when you had a company that was a plant that was working 8 hours with 500 people, we've done the 3 shifts for 3 8 hours, 3 times 150, 150, 150, so that less people meet with each other and the risk to spread the pandemic was less. This is very very important to have in mind. The pandemic it's a bad event in the business for Tanger Med also. It's the bad event for Morocco, of course, because we can speak about this maybe later. We had to do a large effort to sustain the population, to sustain the economy, but there are also some opportunities, and there are opportunities for small actors, for small economies to take some benefits between common, of course, from the pandemic.
Yeah, we've got an audience question just come in actually asking about the impact. I mean, did you actually manage to increase shipments on any routes during the pandemic?
The shipments during the pandemic, we had an increase on the logistical activity of the ports of Tanger Med, and this is due to the fact that other ports in Morocco, the second port in Morocco is in Casablanca in terms of activity, was less integrated in the worldwide logistical corridor, or was less seen as a hub for the logistics for worldwide companies. So meaning that during the pandemic, the big shipping companies, companies from logistics, in fact, concentrated their effort to secure their activity in major hubs. In major hubs like Tanger Med, like Hamburg, like Dubai, or others. So this decision that has been made by big companies put in front our infrastructure, and this is why we had in the logistical container activity in the port of Tanger Med in 2020, which is the COVID year, a growth of approximately 20% of the activity. So this is quite very positive for the business, and also for for the mid-long term, because thanks to that, we also became an important hub for some operators that were not for necessarily working with us before the pandemic, and in smallest ports, either in Morocco or around Morocco, that has and that was not able to operate in the same way that we've done in Tanger Med.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, let's just talk a bit broadly again about the changes that are happening in global trade. One phrase that we hear a lot of, well, for years we've been hearing about just in time, and now people are talking about just in case supply chains. Is that something that you find that your customers, is that a way that they are changing their behavior, and is that affecting your business?
There is a lot of change in the logistic sector. It's a very important sector for the industry, and the logistical sector is in developing countries like Morocco one of the major obstacles of the emerging of a very competitive worldwide industry, due to the fact that the logistics is based on the infrastructure. And the infrastructure needs financing, needs a lot of money to be put in place by the governments. And behind an infrastructure, you have to business model also for this infrastructure to be financed. What we noticed in our clients, and we had very interesting signatures in Tanger Med complex. As logistical operators, we have, I can give you some examples like DHL, Jeffco, Nippon Express. I think from the 10 first logistical operators, we may have 5 to 6 from them that are already operating in our area. What we can notice that they have a lot of investments in all what is around digitalization, optimization of their tools of production. What we call tools of production. It depends on the kind of company, but it can be ships, it can be trucks. It depends on what we are speaking about. But the importance of digitalization, the fact that people are willing to work in immediately with their customers through platforms. Internet platform and so on, becoming a new reality in our area. And we have very important clients, worldwide clients like Renault or Siemens or so on, that are working that way with those new tools, with those new, let's say, wave of new technologies to increase the competitiveness of the offer and the competitiveness of the forecasting of the needs and the utilization of the surfaces, if it's the warehouses or vessels or trucks. So I think this is the first main point. The second point is that we noticed also, maybe this is more specific to Tanger Med platform, is that the investments and the starting of is much more massive. I'm willing to give an example also on that kind. I think the first operator of logistics that started the business in Tanger Med area for its first time, maybe it's something that happened like 5 or even between 5 to 10 years ago. They started with a dedicated project for clients or sector, and they were not having the idea to have a massive or important platform at the beginning, at the start of their business, saying that there was not even not bidding on the market or not expecting a sufficient growth to do this kind of investments. The last 3 to 5 years, I can give the latest example in my mind is about our client, for example, Nippon Express. We noticed that they start with more massive investments, and they are from the beginning having multi-sector, multi-businesses, multi-line of businesses approach. So I think the ambition, if I may say it that way, of our friends from the logistics are more and more important, due to the fact that their role in the value chain in the industry is growing. They are say it when I speak with people of this industry, in fact they are willing to enter the plants of the industrialists. They are more and more, even for sometimes helping the industrialists that is exporting goods to manage its own stock, its own warehouse, and providing services inside the plant in addition to the services they provide in their own platform, in their own area. And this is also for us interesting, because the fact that the logistics and the industry are having more ties and working differently, more and more differently together, open new markets for us and give us the hope to be able to bring more competitiveness to our industrialist clients, because we have industrialists that are leading their businesses in Morocco, but also in the export markets. And those people needs to be sustained and supported by a very smart and efficient logistics. And this can be done only that way, by sharing the business, by working together more closely.
Very, very interesting. And we got a question on that. You talked about how the business is changing. To what extent is it changing geographically? Laurent Simon asks if you consider that Tanger Med can become a logistics hub to serve European markets with imports coming from the Far East. I mean, have you noticed that kind of geographical shift over the past year? And is that what you expect to see in future?
We already work as a shift, as a hub for the Europe, because 40% of our activity now of transshipment containers are dedicated to Africa. Roughly 40% also is dedicated to Europe. So we do the right exact words. What we use in our presentations generally is to speak about a gateway between Europe and Africa. This is due to the localization of Tanger Med. Tanger Med is, we can say it in that in some simple words, is in the highway of the worldwide logistical flows, due to the fact that we are in the Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar is roughly 20% of the worldwide trade, and we have there more than 2,000 ships that cross the Strait of Gibraltar every year. So thanks to that localization, and thanks to also the quality of the infrastructure that benefit to our clients and operators, we are a very young project, and you know that we have less than 15 years of operations. So in the last 15 years, we went from nothing to the first port in the Mediterranean Sea in terms of container activity. We are in the introduction about 9 million capacity. In terms of we already became in 2020 the first port before Algeciras, before the port of Port Said in Egypt, Algeciras in Spain or Barcelona, or Africa before the port of Durban. So this localization, this geographical localization, is, I think, one of the main reasons that explain, of course, the competitiveness of the hub, but also the fact that there were, from the beginning, from the inception of this project, a wide vision from His Majesty the King in 2003 to put not only an infrastructure, but to bring also a business activity zones all around. We speak about 1,000 hectares for the ports, but we speak about more than 2,000 hectares already for the industrial zones, and the extensions are willing to put this industrial and activity zones up to 5,000 hectares. My point is to say the change is already here. We are already serving with quite half of our capacity, portuary capacity, Europe. In terms of exports, the 60 to 80% of the exports that are going outside our industrial zones goes to Europe. So the link between Morocco and Europe is going to be more and more real, more and more visible economically. And this is, I think, quite normal, because From my office in the ports, I can see Spain, and I can see also the kingdom, Gibraltar. Before last year, I was saying all the time, I can see two countries. So from the European Union. So today I can see countries from one from European Union and they're from the worldwide global markets.
Global Britain, indeed. And questions flooding in, I should say. Another one related to what you've just been saying about how business is changing. Just going back briefly to the pandemic, one of the audience members is asking, has that had any impact on shipping costs? Has it driven costs up at all during the past year?
Shipping costs, yes, there were some impacts, of course, in shipping costs because during in the beginning of the pandemic, and we all remember that, and at a personal level, I think we had the same reaction that some also value chain or economical sector of reaction. There were a little bit of dramatization, let's say, even if it's again, I insist on the point that this is a real subject, and we have a very in some countries in terms of debt, in terms of economy. But there were some in the beginning of the pandemic. There were some let's say disorder that created increase in the costs. An increase in the cost of the logistics for the trans-bordering from border to border, from area to area, from, for example, Asia to Europe, or from Asia to Africa. It was a reality, yes. To tell it for you from our side, we did not change our costs. There were no increase in the costs, but from some private companies worldwide take the advantage of the situation, but all those things had been get back to the normal for the last 3 to 6 months. I think everyone witnesses return back to the normal mode, and there is not that much today. I think there is not that much effect on the logistical costs due to the pandemic, at least what we can see for our clients and in our area, which is one of the most important in the Med Sea. You can take it as an indicator. I think things are getting back to normal in the logistical costs for the worldwide flows, for the global flows from for example, China to Europe, from China to Africa, or from Europe to USA, or from Africa to the American continent.
Okay, here's a question from Mark Zashian, asking, should emerging market countries form an alliance, regional alliances, to help them with their logistic challenges? Is that the kind of thing that you see happening? Would that make sense?
This is looking like something political. So this is something that can be done with a political approach that has been maybe hosted by an organization like the African Union for the African area. And we all know by experience that the most efficient way to move forward in this kind of subject is to follow the economy, to follow the market. Of course, there are a lot of interest to share experience, and we as Tanger Med, we think that it's very important, and we have somehow responsibility to help our partner to benefit from our experience here in Tanger Med. And of course, our foreign affairs and the vision of His Majesty the King is to act an African country and to assume a leadership for some subjects. So in the logistics and portuary industry, Tanger Med is very involved in the African initiative. Right? Let me say it that way. I give 2 examples to be clear, or 2 or 3 examples. The first one is, for example, to share the expertise through trainings, through sharing of experience with other ports. And we have dedicated the company that is an engineering company called Tanger Med Engineering, more than hundreds of engineers that are providing trainings and providing technical studies for ports in Africa, remember some of them in Kribi, in Cameroon, in Madagascar, in some countries. So we are already involved through our company in making this link and helping logistics to emerge differently in tertiary industry. We have other examples. One of them is that in Africa we have an association from in special economic zones that has been created by Tanger Med and some partners in 2014-15, and today it's more than 30 countries that are part of this foundation association that are sharing also experience about the success story of Tanger Med zones, Tanger Med free zones and special economic zones, and willing to sustain all the new zones that will emerge in Africa. Our strong belief in Morocco is that Africa is the next China or next Asia, say it the way we want, but the growth is going to happen in Africa in the next decades somehow. Everyone is looking how. I think Morocco is also searching its path in this approach. And Africa, we need to invest in Africa, and we need to be linked to our African partners, because this is the next step for the growth of our business here in Morocco, and for also the growth of the business of our clients. We do think it can be very effective if there is, if the politics in other countries, as we witnessed in Morocco, understand that we have to grow the economy hand in hand between the private and the public sector. And from the 20 years already, we had the Moroccan governments and authorities and the Moroccan state insisted on all to have a private-public partnership and to grow the sectors by growing the business private partners. If we find this level of understanding, we try to put in place an administration that is, let's say, investor client centric somehow. If when we find this kind of understanding in our partners, or this kind of political will, we can move forward very rapidly and we can do things together. And this is what happened for us in Ivory Coast, at Cameroon, in some countries, and we have the ambition to be everywhere we can, thanks to our expertise that we are continue to accumulate.
Okay, very, very interesting stuff. We have another question I'd like to pick up from the audience from Yassine Kalam, who is asking, are there any already completed or ongoing technology transformation projects that will help to improve business and operations in a logistics hub?
In our logistics hubs, we have in Tanger Med a lot of ongoing initiative. This is not necessarily my core interest as a person and also as a responsible, but this kind of subjects are really important for the future of our business and our platform. And we are working on many initiatives that are today seen as the next phase of the logistical or subject. I can speak about blockchain initiative. We have also artificial intelligence initiative. We are working very, very hard on the digitalization of our dematerialization of all our process. Of course, link it to the customs and to our opportunity partners that work with us on that subject. And what I can say about that is the most important is to keep the operations, to have all the time when you introduce a new technology, when you introduce a break or a game changer in the activity, to secure the existing activities before emigrating to a new way of doing business. So this is the main constraint for this kind of group or complex. We deal with billions of dollars of goods, of exports, so it's a continued chain. You cannot stop it and say do a change of in this kind of process or in this kind of. So we have to maintain the activity and introduce the other new technologies. And we do this, of course, in partnership with our clients. And we want this area, this project to be in state of art. So, for example, our partner APM Maersk, when they done the investments for the Tanger Med 2 ports that has been launched very recently, last year in 2019, in the summer 2019 by Moulay El Hassan. This project, this Tanger Med 2 is operated by APM with fully automated cranes, which is the first port of that kind in Africa and one of most modern ports in the world, because 100% of the operation are done from a control station which is not in place. So it made APMS gain a lot of competitiveness, a lot of optimization in terms of rapidity of execution. And it is also for us a guarantee that this port and the investment we've done in it is here to last and to for a long time, and to follow all the new improvements that the logistical or portuary activity will know in the next years.
And just from the customer, the client, the investor point of view, obviously they want the industrial logistical hubs to deliver cost effectiveness, criteria of quality, time, distance, access to skills, and so on. How can they be sure that they get that when they're looking to invest?
Look, I think the best way to convince someone about something is to make it see it by its own eyes somehow, or read it or whatever. But I think the important point to attract investments is to have a good product. In fact, when I speak about products, I say it in a marketing way, meaning that the country, the legislation, all the components of the offer of the product has to be in an objective way, good and positive and more competitive than others. So you cannot fool in investors, because the world is global, as you like to say now in UK. We have a global world. So the world is global, and I meet every year, to say it clearly, roughly between 20 to 30 chairman, presidents of industrial groups that I have the chance to share and discuss with them about how they made the choice to come to Morocco, or not to come, by the way, for some of them. All those people, and I think some of them hopefully are looking to us today, they do the same approach. They do a benchmark, they analyze what are the pros and cons of a destination, and they have something written in a paper, and they enter the decision process, making with an analysis of the situation. In the paper, sometimes it's hard to make the difference. Of course, I think the growth we noticed in Tanger Med, the fact that we went, as I said, from nothing to the first port in the Mediterranean area, and we had been ranked in many ranking in terms of activity zones as the first activity zone in Africa, the second in the Mediterranean area, or worldwide, depending on the ranking that we speak about. All this is due to one important point, which is Morocco today, due to the effort that has been done by the government, also due to the vision that has been put in place 20 years ago by this Master the King about the industrialization of Morocco, is having a very good product for industrial investors. And I'm going to maybe rapidly speak about some benefits, which are incentives, fiscal taxes, blah, 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 all those points that you can hear away from everywhere. But the best way to describe the real interest of an area is to speak about real life examples, to illustrate with the projects. And in that field, I have a lot of things to say that can maybe enlighten people about what's happening here. And it's very simple. I take the example of, for example, Valeo, which is a initially French automotive tier one operators having more than 20 billion US dollar of turnover every year, one supplier to all major brands. They started back in 2020 in Morocco and precisely in Tanger Med area with a rental building of, I'm speaking as with surfaces. So just it's very simple to understand. We can go to turnovers and so on, but surfaces is just to give you an idea about how big they can be, how big the ambition change. They started in 2012 with 4,000 square meters, and they doubled the size of the building later to reach 8,000 square meters, like in the year 2013. And in 2015, they started a project of 13 hectares with more than 1,500 direct jobs. So this, like in 3-4 years, we've done the proof of the concept for Valeo. And thanks to that, one of their competitor, which is Varroc Lighting, more than 2 billion US dollar of turnover, very efficient in some market, no USA, US Indian company, which is one of their competitor. They came in 2016 because, of course, the leader of the market is here, so they came to investigate. They were discussing about an area of 3,000, 5,000. It was in 2016. We started the businesses in 2017. We are in 2021. They had 30,000 square meters, 3 hectares covered plants with roughly 700 jobs, 600 jobs. Large part of them also are engineers, and they are putting a research center here in Morocco, and they are willing to expand to double the size before 2025. So how to explain all this? There is only one reason. It's very profitable, and there is a real will and the commitment from the Moroccan country, a commitment from the Moroccan government to bring Morocco from a country that was in 2020 with quite zero in automotive industry to a country in 2020 that is first the leader in automotive industry in Africa, in the top 20 worldwide in the automotive industry, and going to be in the top 10 in our projection in the next 5 to 10 years, due to the fact that we do the efforts in terms of infrastructure, we do the efforts in terms of trainings, skilled workforce. This very important resource, which is that we have a young population, and this is an asset. When you know that there is a lack of 2 to 4 million workers in Germany, well, we have them in Morocco, and we will be pleased to host any German industry that will be interested. And by the way, we have more and more also operators from Germany, just to say it between common, that's starting to grow intensive activity in industries that are intensive in terms of workforce in Morocco. Not only wiring in automotive, but also other activities that are intensive in terms of workforce. So my idea that I would like you to keep in mind is there is only one way to explain the success of an area is in behind. You have to have either a very good product or a very interesting market, very interesting, wealthy, that may attract investors because they need to serve the market. In the case of Morocco, we all know we have less than 40 million in terms of population. We are an average country or a developing country. The domestic market is not going to interest that much big companies to do important investments. But The fact that we have a good product for the exports, for the production, for the competitiveness in terms of cost effectiveness, it's not a low-cost country at all. It's the best cost country. We are able to attract very big investment that has nothing to do with our existing industry. I give you an example about Hans Corporation, which is a Korean company ranked number 5 in the wheel industry. They opened the plant in Morocco in 2019 in Tanger Med also. This investment is around 440 million euros in an area of 25 hectares roughly, and they are having more than 1,500 jobs. This company, thanks to this is a huge plant of 25 hectares, very impressive, is growing from the 5th rank in the worldwide production of automotive wheel to the 3rd one, as 99% of its production, if it's not 100%, is dedicated to exports. And this is maybe something I should have said before. In Tanger Med and in Tanger Med zones, we do the special economic zone are dedicated to export processing zone. It's export processing zones. So the large majority of the industrial production is dedicated to exports. And also for people that are willing to get rational about this growth, I can share with you the value of the export during the last 5 years. We were in 2016 roughly around, I think, $6 to $7 billion dollars in 2016, and we went from this to something around more than 10 billion US dollar in 2020. So the kind of growth we have every year is around 15 to 20% in the exports from our industries, from our industrial zones. And it's the case if we look company by company, and then also the case if we look sector by sector. It's roughly between 15 to 20%. And I think it's the best answer to this question. Yes, we can speak about the fact that there is a reduced tax, there are incentives, there's free tax for a certain while and so on. But the real way to interest, I think, people is to tell them, look, maybe you have a competitor that is already here and that is very profitable. And it's the case. Renault, for example, is producing more than 20% of its worldwide production here in Tanger Med, in Morocco. And it's not impossible that they grow this production, because we are having today more than 400,050 cars from Renault. No one can say what is going to happen tomorrow. Even if the markets everywhere are somehow decreasing, the competitiveness of the Moroccan plant is going to last for a long time,
Okay, terrific stuff. We've actually, time is almost up, but I'm going to try and get in a few more questions just quickly from the audience. One about Evergreen. We haven't mentioned that, whether the disruption in the Suez Canal, whether the ship that got stuck, whether that affected you, and related to that, related to pandemic disruption anyway, did you have any impact on hiring? Does that affect your ability to attract skills? Let's do those two, and then maybe we'll come on to a couple more if we've got time.
Okay, so the two questions. The first one about the Evergreen and the Suez issues that last less than a week. Of course, has an impact, but the impact is not that important. I think it was more a media subject than because it has been solved in a week. If it has been solved in 2 weeks, maybe it's something different, or 3. But after it happens, and now everything's getting normal after a week, we can say that the impact has been not that much important in our area and for our business. So we can say it's already behind us. The second question was about the hiring. I did not hear you.
Yes, on skills, whether you've had any, whether the pandemic had any impact on your ability to attract talent.
Oh, yeah. So it gets us back to the subject I was speaking about, which is the skilled workforce and the fact that in this part of the world, in Africa, globally, but in Morocco more specifically, we have a very young population. The attractiveness of the industry is a everywhere a subject, because I think we share the same cultural references. And today, when you see a movie, when you think about the future of your I think there is not that much people that are thinking about their children in industries, in a plant somewhere working. We all think about offices. I'm in office. We all think that, and I think this is something that is related to the late 80s, 90s, where we all had been taught that the services were growing and taking a bigger place in the GDP of countries and becoming the first employers and so on. Like it was the thing that we had to focus in to develop the country, or to develop the skills, or to find employment for our young people. The attractiveness of industry is a real subject. It's not worldwide, but it's not necessarily the case for just to say it in Morocco, because the industry is attractive in Morocco because it brings also a secure environment of work with multinational and also with very well organized and structured companies from Morocco. So the attractiveness of industry here in Morocco is real. And I think if you go meet a young guy in Sweden and you ask him, do you want to work in an IKEA store, or to sell the furniture, or you want to do the furniture? Maybe I'm wrong, but I think people will prefer or will be comfortable by going to the IKEA store. In Morocco, we are not at this level of relation, or we are not in this situation. People prefer to have, due maybe to the fact that we have a history of artisanal work, handcrafted things. People prefer to have, to say it because I am a manager and you are a journalist, to have a real job. That's where they do things so they can see, and where they find they prove their skills, and also where their career is going to be linked mainly, or 1000%, where their productivity, hard working, and so on. In the service world, it's quite different, because you can be a good commercial by luck and things and happens. But in the it's considered as very attractive. So I have to say that. And if I get back to the question about the pandemic, yes, of course, we had an issue, because I told you, for example, for Lear Corp, we had to hire 3,000 people during the pandemic. So we had to find those people, but also to find a way to make them move and be able to go to do the interviews, to go to the plants and so on. But there is no subject on the attractiveness of the industry for our clients or here in Morocco, because the industry in Morocco is just emerging. It has noticed the growth of 25%, for example, not 25%. It has went from zero of the exports in automotive sector in 2000 to 25% of the exports of Morocco in 2020. So it is taking a real visibility in the Moroccan and as I said before, when you understand that the exports have had a growth from Tanger Med zones of roughly 40% from 2016 to 2020, from $6-7 billion to more than 10.5, it means that we managed to feed those industrialists, those plants, with a very motivated workforce. And this workforce and these youth people, and more considering the industry as the best place to work in, instead of willing to work in services or in less, let's say, structured or less real world, handmade jobs.
Got it. Jaafar, thank you so much. We absolutely are out of time, I'm afraid. So I'm going to have to wrap it up there. It's been great talking to you. It's great to talk to somebody who's obviously so enthusiastic about what he does and about his prospects. So thank you very much. Thank you to the audience for being with us and for being so active. We had a pile of questions coming in. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. You can see this session on Catch Up on demand at any time over the next 30 days. And as I said at the top, this was part one in a series on the changes in global trade that we're doing here on FT Live. Do please join us for the second one, which will be on Tuesday, the 18th of May, with an online discussion on how big companies in logistics, the automotive sector, renewable energy, electronics, high technology industries, how they're making location decisions as we enter this new era for trade. Jaafar, thank you so much. Thank you again, audience, for watching. See you again next time.
If I may say a last word, or is
of course.
I just wanted to invite everyone to come to visit Tanger Med once the pandemic is finished, because you have to come. So we wait for you, and we hope we're gonna be able to share our experiences with you. Thank you, Mister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much.